does Justin Trudeau really think that he is backing some great cause of Sikh rights and self-determination, or this is just cynical politics, knowing that he needs the support of one party and he will do anything to keep them on board?
I think that we all need to remember what happened this week with the House of Commons commencing its fall sitting, Trudeau being the lowest point in the polls that he's been since he became Prime Minister. He needed something to grab onto. Canadians are facing the highest housing costs in a generation. A bag of groceries in Canada will, cost 4,500 rupees equivalent. Consumer price index is the highest it's been in a generation. Canadians are struggling in a very significant way, and I don't think India can relate to that because India is leading economic growth on the planet right now with 10% quarterly GPI moves. So it's Indians are they can't relate to what goes on here. Trudeau governs, by identity politics. He seeks to divide in order to conquer, and that's, the game plan. The other thing that we all need to remember is that Trudeau has never really had, other than the first election, he's never had the support of Canadians. He gets elected with maybe 29% of the popular vote, and he has to piece that together with Jagmeet Singh. He wouldn't be Prime Minister unless he had the support of Jagmeet Singh as, to create that coalition government. And so what has Jagmeet Singh ever, said about a Khalistani terrorist? And we know the answer to that. He refuses to condemn terrorism, and therefore Trudeau is going to refuse to condemn terrorism. And so jointly...
as a follow-up, do you find it surprising that hardly any Canadian politician, barring maybe Jagmeet Singh and a couple of others, and of course the foreign minister, have actually supported him on his claims about Indian intelligence being behind the so-called assassination of Nijjar?
It doesn't matter because this will get buried because he's never going to have to produce the details of the investigation. They're going to be locked up like they were. The Air India bombing investigation took $100 million in over a decade, and they didn't release that until trial. And so they're not going to have to release any details of what they found out. Indian agents, what does that actually mean? People are not as dumb in Canada as you might think. And so I think that he scores a huge victory because it puts him in the limelight, and he's a former, part-time drama teacher, and this is what he leans towards. And so he gets his big splash on the international stage on Monday, and then flies down, to New York, to the United Nations, and he's parading in front of the planet on how he's going to, single-handedly, change the world and save the world for, climate change. He probably won't be Prime Minister for much longer, and he'll go work with Tony Blair, for some leftist, think tank, and is most of his time now is the Canadians are facing these huge problems. He doesn't spend much time in Canada because he's hated. When he goes to a rally anywhere in Canada, he's got people waiting for him, throwing vitriol towards him, and he knows that. So he has to, travel abroad, and he didn't come back from G20 with any trade arrangements. He doesn't come back from any nation that he visits with any formal trade deals. And so he comes back and sits on platitudes. It's a sad situation, unfortunately. And it sounds like, a lot of hot air, but that's really, how Canadians are being governed right now.
Well, he has managed to at least get the trade deal with India put on hold. And also, as an Indian perspective, I find it remarkable that people who talk about India's Hindu nationalist government and polarization don't bat an eyelid before actually doing appeasement politics and appeasing actual terror sympathizers on their own soil. But Professor Deheje, I want to play out for you the reactions of Mr. Trudeau when he actually spoke in the House of Commons and the day after. Listen to this, and do you think that this is him walking back from his original stance a little bit? Let's listen to what he said.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Jagmeet Singh Nijjar. Canada has declared its deep concerns to the top intelligence and security officials of the Indian government. Last week at the G20, I brought them personally and directly to Prime Minister Modi in no uncertain terms. Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. In the strongest possible terms, I continue to urge the government of India to cooperate with Canada to get to the bottom of this matter.
India and the government of India needs to take this matter with the utmost seriousness. We are doing that. We are not looking to provoke or escalate. We are simply laying out the facts as we understand them, and we want to work with the government of India to lay everything clear.